Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with some more Total War Warhammer 2 news. It has been quite a while since Festag, and they still have not released the update. However, they are still working on it. Total War released this post here, which we're going to look over now. The Festag beta update updated. This was actually released yesterday, so I'm a little bit late on this, so my apologies on that, guys. But yeah, it doesn't really give us too much indication as to when this will be coming out, but nonetheless, you can opt into the beta. It has instructions here on how to do so, and I would definitely recommend that any of you who feel so inclined do so. Help Creative Assembly test out these new changes, and also give them your feedback. In terms of the actual changes here, a lot of them are just miscellaneous bug fixes. There's quite a few campaign changes as well. Yeah, not really too much here that's going to be super applicable to this channel, but I definitely recommend you guys go through and read up for yourselves on what's going to be happening with the campaign changes, skill changes, you know, various things. My understanding is they're trying to bring the old Game 1 Lords more in line with the Game 2 Lords in terms of their skills and everything, so yeah, we're seeing quite a bit of that here. Looks like, yep, just all skill changes, a few building changes as well. And, yeah. Moving on to the real important bit of this particular post, at least as it pertains to this channel, is the balancing changes. And there are quite a few for some factions. However, there are only a couple for some other factions. So let's dive straight into it. And again, keep in mind that these are proposed changes. This patch is still in beta, and there are guaranteed to be changes in between now and then, so let me know what you think in the comments down below about these balance changes. I, of course, going to be submitting my own feedback to Creative Assembly about these, but overall, I just, as a kind of precursor, I do think that the majority of these changes are very well thought out and small, but at the same time impactful. So let's get to it. First, with Bretonia, the Green Knight has had his hit reaction chance go from 0 to 50, so he should, if I'm understanding this correctly, he should get staggered less. He should get interrupted less. He also has even more AP and melee damage, so the Green Knight going to be getting even more powerful. He is already pretty decent, but still just a little bit expensive for what you get out of him, so I definitely like that quite a bit. Pegasus Knights have had their mass increased. I'm hoping that means both regular and Royal Pegasus Knights, but it doesn't specify here, and they have minus 100 cost, but the mass increase especially will definitely help them out quite a bit. Grail Guardians got a bit cheaper as well. That's a pretty good change. Knights Errant get an additional charge bonus, which I am quite a big fan of. Knights Errant, already reasonably cost-effective low-tier shock cavalry, and getting a bit of extra charge bonus is definitely quite helpful in their intended role. The Icon of Devotion, also the Grail Relic, has had its area of effect slightly increased, another extra 15 meters, so that's always helpful. Yeah, so far so good. Lots of buffs, well, not lots of buffs, but a few minor buffs to Bretonia definitely will help them kind of stand out in some different matchups. Yeah, the Pegasus Knights especially, if they can get Pegasus Knights to be where they need to be, then Bretonia will struggle a lot less against the heavy monster factions like Tomb Kings, Lizardmen, those sorts of factions. But as it is right now, I think those are some pretty warranted and pretty decent changes. Moving on to the Dark Elves, just a couple here. The Charybdis is now aquatic. I don't know why it wasn't before, but it makes sense to me. So it'll get buffs while it's in shallow water. The Raven Heralds also get an additional minus 100 cost, so they're a bit cheaper. I do not find myself bringing the Raven Heralds often. Not that I really play Dark Elves all that much to begin with, but Raven's Heralds definitely not the best unit in the world, so a minus 100 cost probably warranted. Moving to the Dwarves, the Master Engineer no longer has the Rune of Slowness, and the Thane now has the Rune of Slowness, which is definitely good. I think later on they're going to say that they took the charge bonus away from the Thane, which is just, yeah, that item is just silly, but definitely nice to have an additional slowing item on the Thane. You can bring him and layer that on top of Rune of Wrath and Ruin to get some heavy speed debuffs, so I like that quite a bit. Master Engineer, yeah, you don't really see people bring him too often. I would like to see them address the targeting of the Master Engineer. It seems like he has some potential line of sight issues, and it just isn't super accurate, but if they could get him to be in a good place, could potentially be a good sniper hero. But anyway, moving on to the Empire, the proud and noble Empire, yes indeed. Minus 50 costs for the mortar. Very good change. Mortars aren't all that useful, but a minus 50 cost is always nice. And Flagellants, their Strength of the Penitent ability went from 12% physical resistance to 15% physical resistance, which is not much of a change at all. But it's a change. Yeah. I don't really use Flagellants all that much anyway, and I probably won't still with this change, but still, always nice to see. Green skins, this is a change that I personally am super excited about. Crimson Killers are finally getting fixed. They're going to be just like a regular unit of Black Orcs. They'll get the same number of unit models. They are going to be slightly more expensive. Obviously, they're going to have less armor, and the -1 health per entity is just to compensate for them getting more men. They actually will have a net increase in HP, despite that -1 health per entity. Slightly less damage and everything as well. Tweaks to splash attack characteristics, so they probably won't have as ridiculous of splash attacks, but the fact that they're getting extra men, extra unit models, matters a lot, because the way that Total War Warhammer 2 works right now, having more unit models is more often going to be well, I wouldn't say the determining factor, but it is certainly an important factor. And so the Crimson Killers, and that goes for a lot of the other low model count regiments for now, like the Swords of Chaos, for example, they just struggle super hard because of their low model count. So personally, I'm a big fan of this change to the Crimson Killers. I really wish they would implement a similar change to like the Swords of Chaos, and maybe some of the other low model count melee regiments for now. But anyway, High Elves, I don't really know why this is listed in the multiplayer changes section. Alistair the White Lion is, yeah, he's not in multiplayer. Moving on, Lizardmen, Bastiladon with the Solar Engine has slightly improved accuracy. That's nice. That thing can be hilariously inaccurate sometimes. That's it for the Lizardmen, though. I'm sure some of you will be upset by that, but they'll be getting some love in a few months. Norska, a couple of changes here. Ice Wolf Chariots now have 95 run speed. I personally am a big fan of this change. I don't think it'll be super overpowered. Ice Wolf Chariots are pretty expensive and kind of squishy, but 95 speed will be awesome against, say, like the Dwarves or some other factions. I mean, just having a super fast chariot will be a lot of fun, certainly. Champions are getting more HP, which I am also a big fan of. The Champions' great weapons especially are just really subpar, and +2 run speed, I guess, is okay, but +4 health per entity is actually quite a bit. That's a substantial health increase. And the sword and board champions, I guess the axe and board champions are already pretty solid. So I think that's a great change. Yeah. The both versions of Famir also got Siege Attacker, which is great. And Kihar the Tormentor also got Siege Attacker. I'm assuming that's one of the big demons that you can unlock through the campaign. But anyway, good changes for Norska. Nothing too crazy, but I'm a big fan of the Ice Wolf Chariot change. For the Skaven, only a couple changes here. I know, again, a lot of you are going to be wanting a lot more, but I guess we'll just have to wait for their DLC to come out in later on in the spring. But yeah, Plague Monk Censer Bearers get slightly more melee attack. Storm Vermin with Halberds get slightly more melee defense. That +2 melee defense actually doesn't seem like a lot, but it is pretty impactful considering they have a full 100 unit models. But Queek Head Taker also got slightly cheaper. Queek's still kind of crap, but that's okay. Tomb Kings, moving on to them. Tomb Scorpion also got hit reaction, ignore, and interrupt chance. So yeah, its mass has also been debuffed, so hopefully it's a little bit easier to bog down, but the Tomb Scorpion, because of its animations, can be ridiculously hard to bog down, but it does look like its combat stats were debuffed slightly, -2 melee defense, -5 melee attack, but +5 bonus versus infantry, and it also got Siege Attacker, so it'll be interesting to see how these changes actually play out. The Tomb Scorpion right now is a very common pick, so yeah, I don't know how much those combat stat debuffs are really going to affect it, but hopefully it'll be less good against large targets, because right now it can outduel monsters which are more expensive than it. It just seems a little bit wrong somehow, but anyway. Next up, we've got, Casket of Souls, -50 cost. Everyone riot in the streets. Just kidding. But yeah, next up we've got, of course, the two vampire factions, which obviously have the most changes because they are the most overpowered. So pretty good stuff. Definitely some well-warranted changes here. Let's dive straight into it. First, deck droppers. Hallelujah. Minus 10 flying speed for all variants of deck droppers. That is an amazing change. I am super happy about this. Deck droppers with handguns also get less ammo and less damage overall and less accuracy. It's just good all around. Deck droppers with handguns are pretty overpowered right now, so I'm a big fan of this. The bombers, on the other hand, get a little bit more ammo. I don't think I've ever, even in campaign, brought them, so they're a thing, I guess. The deckhands all across the board, all variants of deckhand mobs and gunnery mobs, so pretty much just all zombies that are standing on the ground got -2 health per entity, which is huge if you consider, they've got, 150 unit models? I don't know if it's actually that many. Maybe it's 120 on standard settings. But, yeah, that's a lot of health. -2 health per entity might not seem like much, but again, considering the high model count, that is pretty impactful. And the fact that it's applied to all these zombie units here does mean that it's going to be a pretty significant nerf for the Vampire Coast. We'll see how much it actually nerfs them in practice, but I think this is a pretty good change. The bombers and the hand cannons also got more men. That's good, so they're going to be up on par with the other gunnery mob units. They also got the same -2 health per entity, and they also got some other buffs here. Looks like, yeah, the hand cannons got more AP damage. The bombers just got better in melee, so that's not too bad. So yeah, I'm curious to see how these other gunnery mob variants pan out as well. They could potentially do well. They could be kind of useless still, but we'll see. Animated Hulks. This is a great change. +15 armor, 4 melee defense, and 10 leadership, so they won't crumble instantly and die instantly. Might actually be a useful unit. Depth Guard with halberds, which during the Everchosen Invitational people were worried they were going to be overpowered. I think they're a little bit underpowered, if anything, right now. They do get an extra +1 melee defense, so again, crazy changes. Not really, but we'll see. Gallows Giant, the regiment around Necrofex. Projectiles no longer expire before reaching max range, basically just bug fixing, so it actually works. The Necrofex Colossus in general gets +100 cost. I think that's well worth it. Necrofex is an incredibly powerful monster. The Shade Wraith Gunners, on the other hand, are a little bit cheaper. It's probably good. The Death Shriek Terrorgeist is now slightly larger, so it'll be harder to pull out from melee, and Harkon now uses the Terrorgeist hitbox rather than a dragon-sized hitbox, which is what he used before. They've also retooled the abilities for the Vampire Coast heroes, so Luther is now going to be the only one with Hornswaggle, and he does not have All Hands Way. Arnessa and the Admirals, I believe, will have All Hands Way. I actually don't remember if the Admirals do right now or not, but neither of them will have Hornswaggle. They will have All Hands Way. And Silostra, the Rotting Leviathan, now has Siege Attacker, which seems like a ridiculous oversight to me, but nonetheless. Noctilus also got a bit more expensive, which is warranted. Noctilus is insanely powerful, so yeah. I would hope for some more nerfs for him, but I'll take a +100 cost. It's nothing crazy, but it's something. Especially for a faction that can bring a lot of cheap units, that actually can be quite impactful. Vampire counts now. So we finished with the Filthy Pirates, now on to the more traditional vampires. Terrorgeist, the same thing. It's going to be harder to pull out of melee. Very good change. I'm a big fan of that. The Blood Dragon got some consistent nerfs across the board. They removed Undeath Resurgent, so he no longer has access to that. Very good stuff, at least in multiplayer, that is. He also got -5 armor to -10 armor and +100 cost on all mount variants. The Red Duke also got +100 cost on all mount variants, but he also got Frenzy, which he did not have before for whatever reason, which kind of doesn't make sense to me, but now he has Frenzy, so I would almost say that that's a slight buff for the Red Duke, if anything. Some additional armor buffs for some, like the Vampire Heroes, Isabella, Manfred, the White King, and then Siege Attacker has been added to the various zombie dragons, of course. Makes sense. And yeah, so overall, the vampire counts, we'll see some additional changes down here in abilities, but I would say there probably needs to be a few more changes, but we're on the right track here with the Blood Dragon. Removing Undeath Resurgent definitely helps, I would say. But we'll get to some other things in just a minute here. Wood Elves, Treemen, hit reaction, ignore chance from 0 to 70, knock interrupts from 0 to 70, so again, hopefully they'll get interrupted and staggered less. I personally am a big fan of Treemen, so hopefully they'll be a little bit better. They already actually are pretty solid, so Orion gets plus 10 melee defense. Hey, that's actually a really nice buff for Orion. Plus 10 melee defense is pretty huge, don't get me wrong. That's a difference in 10%, chance to hit, so that's pretty substantial. And Orion already has pretty crap melee defense, so giving him more would definitely be helpful. And I do think that it's going to make Orion more of a viable pick. Right now, you actually don't see just pure Glady spam anymore. I have been seeing quite a bit of Durthu and the Ancient Treeman as well lately, so nice to see the other lords besides just the net Glady kind of take their place in the spotlight. And then the ability changes here. This is the other thing I wanted to talk about. So first off, Helm of Discord has had a minus 10 meter effect range, so it's a tighter area of effect. I do think that's a pretty good change. I still wish that they would just remove it from the Blood Dragon Lord entirely, but that's probably not going to happen. But it's a reasonably good change. It has a smaller area of effect, so we'll see how much that actually changes in practice. But yeah, for the Dwarves, Ungrim's had a couple of ability changes as well. Red Ruin now has unlimited uses. Doesn't last quite as long and costs slightly more, but also recharges in melee. Axe of Dargo now also recharges in melee, but recharges a lot faster. Rune of Slowness is 18% movement speed and no longer has the charge bonus effect. I think it was, 12% movement speed before, so that's pretty good. Flash Bomb no longer recharges only in melee, which is great for Grombrindle. It also doesn't last quite as long, but still. Rune Helm of Zufbar also gives -4 leadership, and it now does not deactivate, so that is quite helpful also. So yeah, some nice little ability changes for the dwarves. Again, nothing too crazy, but this seems like Ungrim's abilities, which I don't actually often bring. I usually just remove all of Ungrim's abilities, but they might be slightly more worthwhile now. We'll have to wait and see. But Greenskins. Azag no longer has his charge bonus effect. Rest in peace, Azag plus Bretonnia 2v2s. And now it gives +8 leadership instead, which is actually probably better for the Greenskins. They already have a lot of charge bonus buffs. The leadership is generally pretty lacking, so I like that change quite a bit. Grimgor, Gitsnick also recharges in melee now, but it has a significantly shorter recharge time. -90 ability recharge is pretty impactful. So we'll see. Grimgor might be a little bit more useful with Gitsnick now. Grimgor's actually not completely terrible, but he's just mostly terrible. But hopefully the Greenskins will get some love when they get their update, like the Vampire Counts and the Dwarves got theirs. Hopefully the Greenskins will get some love at that point, but we'll see. Vampire Coast, Captain Ross Moondial. This is the ability for Noctilus. So another significant nerf to Noctilus. -50 meter target range, so you can't summon zombies like halfway across the map anymore, which is a good and warranted change. Absolutely. Wood Elves, Horn of the Wild Hunt no longer gives a speed effect. It now gives 54% charge bonus. So rest in peace, Azag plus Bretonnia. Hello, Orion plus Bretonnia, 2v2s. Huh? 54 charge bonus on a unit of Grail Knights. It's in Lance formation already? I think so. And finally, we've got a few spell changes here. Denizens of the Deep. This is the summon of the Rotting Prometheans. Has a +4 second recharge time. Okay. Drowned Dead, though. This is a pretty decent change. +1 power cost for both variations. Probably a pretty warranted change. Invocation of the Heck also got a -1 second duration, which means it loses 1 second's worth of healing. I don't know if that's really going to be a super impactful change, but I know a lot of people were crying about nerfs to Invocation of the Heck, and I think that's probably warranted. Same thing with Vindictive Glare. As much as I love spamming that spell, it is probably a little bit undercosted, so +1 power cost for both versions is warranted, absolutely. So yeah, all these changes I agree with pretty much 100% across the board. There's nothing that I really think is particularly strange or uncalled for. There are some things that I think don't go quite far enough, but this is pretty typical of how Duck has handled balance changes. Just small, slight changes. The game as a whole is very, very well balanced, I would say. Despite my tier list that some of you may have seen a while back, I still do think that the game is very well balanced as a whole, and just these kind of small, fine-tuning changes here and there are what's necessary to keep the game in a balanced state. So hopefully, especially the nerfs to the Vampire Counts and the Vampire Coast, will help bring those two factions a little bit more in line with everyone else, and some of these other changes as well. So overall, I'm quite hopeful. These changes definitely got me excited. I don't know when we're going to be seeing this patch out, but certainly the proposed changes are all very good changes. So yeah, I'm a big fan. Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below, though. Hope you guys enjoyed watching. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification buttons. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.